All right. Well, it's possible we might have a couple more people joining us, but since we have a very tight schedule, why don't we go ahead and get started? Um, because I know that a couple people that won't be able to be here. So, this is Neil, and we are glad to have as our guests Janice Smith and Jacques Raynaud, whose name I'm probably mispronouncing, to cover the Karuta project. First, we'll start with our usual meeting structure. It's on the Etherpad, which is just some project announcements and updates. One thing I wanted to get some quick feedback from the group on is it's about time to do the Sakai surveys, Sakai community surveys. And the last couple of years, we had one survey for upgrade plans and one survey for tool use. I'm thinking about just combining them into one giant survey, so not have to do two different ones. And also thinking about crowdsourcing, so that people, the community members, like if you have some questions you would be interested in knowing about what other institutions are doing and that you'd want to provide about your own institution, kind of crowdsource the questions, that additional questions we might want to ask on a survey, and then I would run them by the Sakai Project Management Committee and see which questions that they're okay with. So I'm wondering if people kind of like that idea, and I would just do it over a period of like a week, week and a half, 2 weeks maybe maximum. So if you can indicate your interest either on the, yeah, thank you for taking notes, by the way. So does the crowdsource idea for the survey sound interesting to folks, or not really? Put it on the Etherpad or put it in chat. Um, Any other feedback? Okay, well, anyway, give me some feedback offline, or we can just try it as an experiment. Like I said, I wouldn't spend a lot of energy on it because we already have the basics of the survey ready to go, just using the templates from the past 2 years. I would just use those as a starting point, and see if we get some additional interest and feedback. So that's one announcement. We have a really exciting announcement about the LEAP project. Louisa, do you want to jump in, or you want me to just say it?
Neil, you can go ahead and give the update.
Okay, so the LEAP project, which is Lessons Enhancement project, we finally have the green light. We got everything organized to move that forward and have Unicon do the development work. It's going to be fairly modest in structure size because we have a beautiful layout, which Louise will be presenting, I think, in a next month. A beautiful wireframe, high definition wireframe, just in terms of we had some constraints in the budget, so we're going to just be able to do a piece of it for Sakai 11, and then we'll see where it goes from there. So that's pretty exciting. We're actually going to start doing some development on that. Gradebook project, I don't know if you all saw the wonderful presentation from yesterday on the gradebook status. That's going along really well. It's not yet in trunk, but they're working towards it, and there is a recording of that presentation from yesterday, so if you want to see the status and how they're progressing, that's available. You can paste the link in. Let's see. A STEP project. I think there's no changes over the last week or so, but we expect to be meeting really soon with the developer, which is Flying Kite, and kind of move that forward. There's a project some of you may not have heard of. It's called Rally, RA11Y, because A11Y is A11Y is accessibility. And there's, that's making progress. That's sort of an emerging one right now, and it looks like that's coming along really well. So that's to get, the purpose of that would be to get first to a VPAT, which is a voluntary a voluntary document that says how we're managing with accessibility, and then eventually get to like either an NFB, National Federation for the Blind certification, and or like a WCAG. These are major organizations that come in and certify your project, and it looks like we have leadership on it. We have an outline of a plan. We've got several institutions interested in funding it, so it's looking really, really promising. We already have an excellent record of accessibility in Sakai, but what we don't have is we don't have any sort of official certification that shows that. So we would be looking at hiring some external help to do some identification of issues and see if we have any major gaps, and then look at fixing those things, and then doing, like I said, some sort of voluntary, something called a VPAT, which is a voluntary report, or potentially even getting a full certification. So that's pretty cool. Sakai 11, I've been getting a lot of feedback from the development community and PMC. I'm going to try and publish another tentative schedule and see, see where things are at. We're not going to have something ready by Open Apereo. We probably will have something ready to show. We'll have plenty to show at Open Apereo, like progress on all the different projects and how far we've gone. It won't be production level though by Apereo. So we're still working on the schedule, and and one of the major things that isn't there, we already have in there Morpheus, which is the responsive design. So that's pretty exciting. That is in trunk, and we're working on that. That lets you use Sakai on mobile devices and devices of different sizes. And the dashboard tool, which is a contribution from University of Michigan, is in there already. So we have a lot of good stuff, already going on. I think that covers pretty much everything. Does anyone have any questions? And sorry if I'm flying by it pretty quickly, but I want to get to the project Garuda.
I have an update about the Tweesia.
Oh, good.
Yes, I will update you guys on behalf of Selva. She cannot be here today. We received 14 entries for the Tweesia Award. The committee is beginning the judging process. We have 5 entries for the traditional high ed, 2 in K-12, 1 for the project, and 6 for online hybrid, but no portfolio entry this time. We hope to have the winner selected by April 3rd. So it's coming up very quickly. And also, Tweesia committee have discussed the idea of expanding the award, and we invite Ian to join a meeting next week. If anyone's interested, we can all join the meeting next week, Tuesday. It's 11. Let me see. It's 11. Yes, 11 a.m. Eastern time. We will talk about some ideas about how to expand it, how it's going to be positioned within the Apereo conference. Apereo community. So we still want to focus on teaching and learning. So because that's what the award is about. We want to revise the guidelines and also mentor the others who want to establish the other awards in other areas. And last but not least, Tweesia is still looking for the next chair. Please, if you're interested, email Selva or join the conference call next week. Thank you.
Thanks, Elisa.
No problem.
There was one other project I think that I should mention that I had not mentioned, which is the Wiki. There's been, over the last year or two, a lot of concerns about the Sakai Wiki and whether it's really sustainable. It's very much likely it will be in, Sakai 11 and still be in the same state. But in terms of community needs, it's not clear if it's really meeting community needs. It's kind of aging and whether it's sustainable. So that project really hasn't gotten off the ground. So that would be an example of one where if people are interested in the Wiki tool becoming a project where we figure out a replacement for it or how to move it forward, that needs some extra energy there. So if you're interested in that, all right. Did I miss anything else before we move on to Karuta? somebody is typing, maybe you can mute yourself. Thank you. Yeah, thanks, Terry. Yeah, I think a lot of people in the community have indicated that Wiki functionality would be continue to have in Sakai, and we've had a number of discussions and ideas. We just haven't gotten the momentum where there's clear kind of leadership and that there's institutions, that there's a clear direction for it or funding and that sort of thing. So, right, and Laura mentions it's growing more debatable whether some of these tools should be native or LTI, and that's also a really, really good point. I think maybe part of the reason why it hasn't got a momentum, because theoretically you could just plug in an LTI wiki tool into Sakai and use that as your wiki. So we're not going to get into the discussion of that right now. I think what we will do are then just kind of a final call. Or any other announcements? Yeah, that's a good idea. Wiki for a future discussion on teaching and learning, I think, would be really a good idea. Thank you for that suggestion. All right, so so for folks who joined late, just so you know, we are recording this session, and it takes a little bit of time for the recording to process after it's done, so it won't be posted immediately, but I'll get it posted up in about a day or two. And let's hear about Karuta. Good suggestion. So Janice, go ahead, and I'll go ahead and introduce yourself and start the Karuta presentation.
Good morning, everyone, and thank you for joining us to hear about the latest news regarding Karuta. I'd like to introduce myself and my colleague, Jacques Raynaud. I'm Janice Smith from Three Canoes LLC, and Jacques Raynaud is from HEC Montreal, and we are members of the Karuta project. Karuta is of interest to you because of for a number of reasons, which we'll be reinforcing throughout the presentation. We are LTI integratable with Sakai. We are a member of the Apereo incubation project and hope to be certified as a fully fledged open source project in the near future. We see ourselves as a replacement for OSP, and we're planning a migration path from OSP to Karuta. We'll also be seeing you at Open Apereo, and we'll teach you how to be a Karuta designer if you plan to join us. I'll probably be reinforcing some of those points over the next slides. So Karuta is a next generation open source portfolio created following OSP and now available for piloting. We're about to launch our latest point version, and you can find us on GitHub. We'll be providing that link at the end. Karuta offers dramatic flexibility for you to design portfolio processes that fit your institution, your course, your program for learning portfolios, assessment portfolios, reporting, and showcasing. In this presentation, we're going to focus on several use cases that emphasize assessment and showcasing. As I mentioned, we're part of the Apereo Foundation. We have an incubation project going on that began in April of 2 years, almost 2 years now. Our partners include HEC Montreal, Kyoto University, Three Canoes, and a school in France called IUT2 Grenoble. As you probably know, those of you who use OSP will no longer be supported in Sakai 11, though I understand it still will be included in Sakai 11, but probably not very functional. And so a year ago, almost, we released Karuta 1.0, and we're about to release Karuta 1.1. Karuta is customizable, LTI enableable, if that's a word. It's multilingual. You can use it in one language or two languages or any possibly other languages. We're exploring that. It has responsive design for use on mobile devices. We are perfecting an OSP import process. You can do peer assessment. You can report. The reporting capabilities are now functional in Karuta 1.1. It uses a front end of jQuery JavaScript and a back end of Java MySQL Oracle. I was asked to do someone is typing again. Can someone please mute their machine? Thank you. I was asked to do a brief introduction of what are portfolios and why would you want to use them. So I have a definition and several examples of use to show you. My colleague Paul Troyer from Minnesota has defined an ePortfolio as a tool for managing digital evidence of one's own learning in ways that contribute to learning that is continuous, deep, and purposeful. There are many types of ePortfolios. You can focus on learning, on assessment, on showcasing, and I'm going to show you some examples using OSP of these different types of portfolios. Learning portfolios provide a place to do learning. They offer digital resources and a structured workflow, and they facilitate the conversation between instructors, students, and peers. They encourage feedback and self-evaluation, and they help individuals document and measure learning over time. Assessment portfolios build on learning portfolios by encouraging learners to create what's called portfolio-worthy evidence. These may be multimedia files, documentation, in other words, where did my evidence come from? How did I create it? Why did I create it? And reflection on that evidence, self-evaluation of evidence. This evidence is linked to learning outcomes that may be created by the program, the course, or by national organizations facilitating the process, and is evaluated usually using rubrics that build on the learning outcomes. And then the data is aggregated and analyzed with identification of representative artifacts or evidence and used to generate programmatic and institutional reports to assess learning and hopefully improve the process. Showcase portfolios build on learning and assessment portfolios by allowing students to gather information about their learning and create attractive displays about themselves. This is a way for students to manage their virtual identity going forward and to facilitate self-expression. These portfolios might be shared with mentors, with admissions offices for career development or job placement, to manage professional credentials, or to be promoted in a job, or just to work on lifelong learning. Garuda offers unique capabilities at the student level. So I mentioned that these portfolios can build on each other. At the student level, a Garuda portfolio can help students document and reflect on learning, self-assess their learning, create resumes from their learning, and showcase that learning. And instructors can then, through the process of designing and integrating the portfolio, in other words, we're inviting you to become a Garuda designer, instructors can assess learning and even work on their own learning through teaching portfolios, whereas institutions then can gather that learning in an assessment process and create accreditation reports. Garuda allows you to link all of these processes together in one relatively seamless workflow. The Garuda roadmap will be releasing 1.1 in April, and Jacques is going to show you about what the newest features are. We'll continue our deployments at our various members, and we invite you to join this deployment. We're perfecting the import of OSP data to Garuda, and we'll be able to show you this at Open Apereo in Baltimore. We'll continue to improve usability and do load testing and fine-tuning. We're offering a free all-day workshop at Open Apereo. In the morning, we'll be doing functional work, teaching you about what Garuda can do and how you might apply it to your institutional programs. And in the afternoon, we'll teach you to be a Garuda designer. We also propose to use Garuda to rebuild the Sakai portfolio community. Jacques, you want to talk to these slides, the next 4 slides?
Okay, well, good morning, everyone. I'm really glad to quickly show you some features of Karuta, but first let me give you like a quick overview. So in 4 slides, like the first one is on the right hand side, what you see is sort of a typical portfolio that I will display later on. Yeah, thanks. Where you have like a sort of a left hand side column where you have like learning objectives, and on the right hand side it's a page. It's a typical page for critical thinking, which is maybe the learning outcome number 1, where students are invited to submit evidence and reflect on the evidence. So this is a sort of very abstract one. You have like sections, you have like different titles, and you have like resources, like you have text, you can have document, files, and comment. So yeah, Janice, can you move on? Yeah. So for us, this kind of structure is like a tree. So if again, Janice, if you move on, you'll see that the portfolio is a kind of root. Can you move on, Janice? And you'll see that many things will appear. Yeah, and this is like the root of the portfolio, the top. And then if you move on, learning objectives and presentation will be like what we call structure. There are like chapters or big organization elements. Then if you move on, you'll get some units, which are a page. And then subunits, unit structure, which are like section of a page. And finally, you will have like resources. So I didn't want to sort of overwhelm you with that, but this is the sort of frame that we have, is that we like things organized. We like things with sections. We're really semantic. We identify everything which is in the portfolio within this kind of framework, and this is really useful. You'll see if we move to the other slide. Well, once you got those trees on the left-hand side, I don't want to be over technical, but it's kind of interesting. You can sort of copy branches or part of the tree, and we have like features that does that. So if you want to copy part of a tree, we have a feature called menu. You can link to a specific tree or a specific branch of the tree with a tool called proxy. And you can read values anywhere in these trees using get resources. So this tree metaphor for us is really powerful because we can copy, we can link, and we can read all the elements within these structures. So slide number 3 is for each and every element, node, or resource in the tree, we have lots of properties that are applied to each individual one. And for example, you can have a semantic tag. So you can name a unit, you can name a resource, and you can then use it again eventually. So this is really interesting. You can, on each of these, the nodes of the trees, there can be action and roles. You can say who's going to be able to read this element, who's going to be able to edit or delete or whatever. So there's a very fine-grained operation on these elements, which give the flexibility of Karuta. And finally, you can also put information about the display of these things. So you can change colors, you can organize things differently, or you can, do some other things that I won't have time to do. And finally, the last slide is I just want to emphasize the sort of iterative approach to Karuta, because we really believe that each portfolio is different. I mean, you should design the one that corresponds to your needs and your students. And this is why we have Karuta the Designer, because Karuta is really flexible. You can use it with faculty. You can create actually portfolio on the fly. And that's really very powerful. And then you can move to small pilots. And since it's easy to change, you can have couple students test things, and you can change them on the fly and refine your concept, and eventually you can move on to production. So maybe if I have now the control, I can show you a couple things that I hope you'll find very useful.
You want me to give you control now, Jacques?
Yeah, please, Neil.
Sure. One sec. Just minimize the screen here, and you now, whoops, you now should have presenter capability.
Okay, thanks. Okay, so Neil, do you see the screen now?
Yes, I did.
Okay, so I'm going to log, and of course, as a designer, I have access to many portfolios that I display. So I'm going to show you one that is a sort of finished one, and it's a portfolio for a school of education that we did. Interestingly, you can switch from English to French here, and I'm going to show you what I found really helpful is a sort of self-assessment dashboard that we've created for this project, for this portfolio. This is something a little bit special, but I show you how you can create one yourself. And you'll see like different competences. There are 4. So this is a program that has been built using competences. And for each competences, there are components. And if I click on, let's see, component 1, it sort of gives example or what we call observable evidence on this competence. So the students or the tutor can see that. And then you'll see you'll see different icons there with colors. It's because the students in this project had to self-assess. They were doing an internship in a sort of in a primary school or whatever, high school, and they had to sort of self-assess themselves. And you'll see that they do that 3 times, at the beginning of this internship, at the middle of the internship, at the end. So if I want, okay, you'll see here that, for example, for component 2, the students sort of self-evaluated with a 1, which is red. So I'm sure you grasp the color meanings there. Red is like, whoops, I have to be careful. Yellow is moving along fine, and green is really good. So if I click as a student, I'm going to switch now as a student, because in French, étudiant, it's because this is the power of Karuta. You can change roles and see what it looks like for the students. And I'm going to go to this component 2, and you'll see that the student has to sort of self-assess and put some comments. So I'm going to mimic that I'm at sort of the min internship, and I'm going to say, okay, I'm going to, I think I improve, and I should, I think I'm doing fine now. So I'm going to say I'm green. And I'm going to close everything. And I can actually add some comments on why I think this is going fine. And the tutor could eventually comment on these. So if I go back to the presentation, you'll see that now in the self-assessment, in the second column, second line, there's a green now. And this is, it sort of display my progress. So this has been really interesting for the School of Education. And I show you that you can do almost the same if you want to proceed with a portfolio yourself. So I'm going to come back to home here and tell you how easy it is to work with Karuta. So I'm going to create a portfolio that I'm going to call the, let's see, Apereo Teaching and Learning. Okay. I'm going to, let's see, just refresh. Okay. This is kind of funny. Just let me sure. Okay. So I think that I will proceed quickly. Let me go back though. This is funny because I sort of tested this thing before. Let me create a portfolio again. Apereo test. Okay, now it's working. So I had a small glitch. I don't know why. So here I'm created this test, and the only thing you have to do is sort of create, let's see, a structure, which will be we can rename it quickly. Let's see, these will be learning outcomes. But this is the part where you really have to think about what you want to do and sort of think about what is the next step. So I'm going to create a unit. This is the way this menu sort of gives you access to all the type of nodes and what you can do. So these are like structural elements, and these are resources. So if I want to create a unit, which will be like let's see, critical thinking, something like that. This is really a typical one. I'm not typing very fast, but I guess so. You see, then I can create a sort of a unit, a section within my page, and I can add like a field is a resource. I can add document. So this is the way it goes. So of course, I mean, you can see that you can create a portfolio quite rapidly, and you can change things and you can move things around. Here, these are sort of the tools available to the designer. So I can move this thing up if I want. I can move it to somewhere else in the portfolio. So there are many tools that are, I mean, this tool has been done by people doing portfolios. So it's done by people really involved in portfolio process, for people using or designing portfolio process. So now I'm going to go to an already created portfolio just to see you how it works. And this is the one I sort of presented before. You create it exactly as I did before. So you create like sections, you add the different types of resources, and it's a bit confusing because there is lots of information available, because there are all sorts of information that are useful for the designers to see what are the kind of resources that are there. So I'm going to move as a student, so you'll see better how it works. And then this is typical. This is what the students will see, and the pencil says this is what the students will have to do, and he sort of can upload files if he wants, or if he can create additional comments. So pencil is edited there. So I'm going to show you, I mean, this is a very basic one. And suppose you want to tell me, wow, this is interesting, but suppose I want the students to submit many files, and how you would proceed to do that? So we created something really powerful and very useful. I'm going to go back as a designer and show you what we call a portfolio parts. Is that it's exactly the same thing as a portfolio that I show you, but this is where I'm going to put different pieces of different elements that I'm going to reuse in other portfolios. So for example, in this ESUP parts, I already created something which is a document, and I'm going to click on the pencil to tell you that what I did for this document resource. And I put a semantic tag called evidence here. And please remind this simple word. And also I put that the student will be able to delete or edit this document resources. So perfect. I come back, and I'm going to show you also another portfolio that is really helpful, a sort of which we call ESUP rubrics. And this is a portfolio where you're going to put the grading element, the rubric elements that are going to be used eventually in the portfolio that I'm going to display. So critical thinking is, for example, is well known. I mean, I'm taking the well-known rubrics that are coming from the Association of Universities. I forgot the exact title. So So here, critical thinking is separated in different elements. Like, for example, one element is explanation of issues. So here, I created like rubric elements which are part of this of the explanation of issues, and it's really easy to do that because, for example, we created a special resource which is called element item. I'm sorry, element in French, and I just add it if I wanted to add a fifth grading rubric element. I just add this special resources, and I put in the label here the description of the rubric, and I going to put a special tag which will be able to identify this this special rubric. So by having this special tag, I will be able to retrieve that. I'm sorry, I forgot to check which is the name of the tag, and the tag is explanation issues. So I don't know if you see that very well. So explanation of issues, this will be the name of these grading rubrics that I'm going to reuse elsewhere. So now I'm going to go back to the sort of portfolio, and I'm going to show you how to sort of create this menu that is going to appear for student in this please submit evidence. So if we recall, I'm now at the second learning outcome, information literacy. I'm here in the section please submit evidence, and here I'm going to play the role of designer and show you how I created a menu that I will display. And the menu is really simple. I'm going to blow it up so you can see it better. So again, these are I'm a designer, and I'm going to fix some properties on this unit structure, this node, and I'm going to say, okay, create a menu. And what you're going to do is go and get in the parts portfolio that we presented before, because I sort of name it. Go and get the document that I tag as evidence. Create a menu called add an evidence and make this menu available for a student. So this is all you have to do to create a menu. And if I move to a student, you'll see now that there will be a menu there, and it can add some evidence now, and the students can add any number of documents that he wants. So again, you can, of course, you can apply that to documents, but you can apply that to anything that you think that will be interesting for your portfolio. You can give permission to faculty to add elements as well. So again, the idea here is to really improve the flexibility of course, you can delete them, and I'm going to delete them. Then same thing here, but I won't be able to show you how well, yeah, let's go back to designer. I'm sorry. Okay, I'm a designer, and I'm going to show you how I created a special rubric for evaluation by the tutor. So again, I come here, and there's a search tool that's, I'm using a special resource that's go and get information in other portfolios. So again, it says go get in ESUP rubrics. This is the portfolio we've been discussing before. Go and get all the rubric elements that are tagged information needed, and bring them to sort of, we can have a menu for the tutor. So this is what I'm going to switch. I'm going to switch as a tutor to display you how it works. And here you'll see there's a pencil here, and the tutor can change, I mean, it can choose whatever grading elements that is appropriate for the student. What's interesting, though, is that we created really interesting reporting capabilities. I'm not going to be able to display that now because it's going to be too long, but it's exactly the same principle. If you can use Karuta, you can create what we call special dashboard resources. And what this dashboard does, and it's really interesting, it does something similar to what we've seen before in the education portfolio. Is what it does is that it sort of search for all the learning outcomes within the student portfolio and will display on this second column the evaluation made by the tutor. Again, this is really simple because I could have like a third column with like numbers or whatever, but what it says is that you can create some kind of dashboard of these portfolio for students, and you can even create like super dashboard where they're going to go and get information in all the different student portfolios and bring that to a special tutor, for example, so he can see the progression of his or her students. So the reporting tool are quite interesting. And again, this is something that you can learn because I'm not a specialist and I'm probably I have much less capabilities that you have in doing these things. And so I'm sure you can be really you can learn these things quite easily. There are like 4 minutes left. I'm going to show you something that is really interesting too. This is what we call the showcase portfolios. So I'm going to move as a student. So this is a kind of templates that has been that a designer has created, and there's a sort of a picture that actually the students can change. The students can, change the name here if he wants. And there's a sort of horizontal menu here instead of a vertical one that I had before, because this is something that people find most useful for students, having this kind of layout. And this is done within Karuta. And what's interesting here is that we sort of devise something that looks a little bit like PowerPoint. I'm not sure it's PowerPoint is a nice thing to follow, but it's in some cases it's kind of interesting. So I'm a student. I'll show you later that I can add stuff. These meaning were created exactly as before, nothing special. But what's interesting is that you can move things around. They kind of like blocks. So if I bring a picture there, I can maybe reduce the size of the picture. Reduce this block, maybe move, whoops, I'm sorry, move it around like this. I can move this one up. Let's see, I can make it better. I can put like YouTube videos or any SlideShare or anything that is that agrees to do the standard. I can put more text there. I can put files. So you see, the idea is to give the students some kind of flexibility to create some nice portfolio. The student can change the color as well. So that's kind of, this is our sort of approach to sort of give a little bit more flexibility to students to present him or himself. And the way it goes is you exactly as I said, you can add an image, a text, a file, or a section. I'm going to add a section and just type here. I'm sorry. New section. We'll have to simplify the menu here. There's lots of information for students. We're not sure if we should do that, but this is. And then the students can enter his text. This is the text for the new section. Exactly. So I'm sorry, click on the wrong thing. So I didn't put any colors there, but again, you can move that around. You can add, you can bring this one here underneath. And I guess the students can create some fairly nice looking things and display their creativity. Quickly, I can easily these are elements that are coming from another portfolio, the one that I showed you before. This was a comment made by the student, is his whatever evaluation portfolio or his learning portfolio. So it's really easy if you tag things properly in the other portfolio, which is a portfolio. You can bring things. The designer can say, okay, there will be a special section in the student's showcase portfolio where comments that he made on his learning outcomes will be sort of copied. So that's kind of interesting. There's also a possibility to create forms and for example, have a resume here and provide to the students templates so they can enter the information. And what's neat about that, and when we did that for Grenoble, is that you can generate a doc file or PDF file based on this, and they're really nice looking. And so you can invest a little bit of time and design on a nice looking resume, and using this information, you can sort of generate the portfolio either in doc and on PDF file. And finally, and I'm going to stop here, is that as a student, I can browse the evidence that I submitted in my evaluation portfolio and bring it to my sort of showcase portfolio. And again, I'm using the menu here, and I can browse, for example, critical thinking. I can find I can find documents that were uploaded in my other portfolio and bring it to this new portfolio. So I think I'm going to stop here because I'm kind of little over my minutes. So I'd be glad to answer any question. I hope I've been too fast, and I hope I gave you the sense that Karuta is really powerful and can help you out design evaluation portfolio or showcase portfolio for your students.
Thanks, Jacques. That was really great. And there's been a lot of discussion on the chat, and Janice has addressed some of the questions, but I wonder if we could I realize we don't have all that much time left, and we do want to have a little bit of time for wrapping up, but I'm wondering if there's any outstanding questions, one or two questions that people might have to ask, and generate a little discussion. Take a couple more minutes. And I guess I will, looks like you're done with the presentation part. Should I remove the presentation?
Actually, we could do a brief thing on migration of data from OSP, or people could just know that we're working on that and can show it to anyone who's interested.
Yeah, maybe we could answer a question. That'd be more interesting.
Yeah, let's just take a couple minutes for questions, see if any additional questions come in through the chat.
Yeah, I've seen lots of questions about Lesson Builder and Karuta. I mean, Karuta is a sort of it's an editing tool for portfolio, but it's of course portfolio can look sometimes similar to sort of lessons sometimes, but it's obviously we don't have the same capabilities. But our aim is really to focus on portfolios.
This is Jim. The one thing that I would say is not so much a question, but and I know we're almost out of time. I just wanted to put this out there since it was in the chat, and maybe definitely for a future discussion for the teaching and learning group. But I think that the idea of just somehow getting something going with helping with in any way that the teaching and learning group of the Sakai community can help with the kind of real world use case information that might be necessary to build out some LTI2 stuff for Garuda would be just a fantastic thing on so many different levels. So I'm just going to put that out there. Just I don't think we need to go into that at all for this particular meeting, but since it did come up in this chat and is directly connected to this, I just wanted to put that out there as something that maybe, we could put on the roadmap for future meetings, because it does seem like to me anyway, it seems like a tremendous opportunity, especially since we've got we've got Chuck Severance, who's, so involved with the Sakai community and LTI2. And because Sakai is LTI2 compliant, so this seems like an obvious place to put some of those teaching and learning group resources to use if it's true that Garuda and Dr. Chuck in general need some use cases.
So one idea is we have a day and a half of meetings scheduled at Open Apereo in Baltimore. And we've already had one intensive meeting with Chuck Severance in Montreal last November. If we could get Chuck to dedicate some time to a meeting at Open Apereo and invite some teaching and learning folks to talk about LTI connections there, that could be very productive. What do you think about that idea? Our meeting is scheduled for Wednesday afternoon and Thursday in Baltimore following the general conference. Well, that's one idea.
Works for me.
I think it sounds good. I mean, make sure you advertise those opportunities and and see who's interested in showing up. And it also could be, I think what Jim was suggesting is we potentially could have teaching and learning meetings or separate meetings if you wanted to go through use cases. Is that what you were saying, Jim?
Yeah, and I guess I was thinking too. It could be very modest. I'm mostly just it just seems like we could just even focus on what for instance, it might be like, what would it look like to integrate with the gradebook tool, or what would it look like to integrate with assignments? What are some things we want to do, and keep the focus very focused, very tight, and just try and come up with some things and figure out exactly what both the Garuda team and folks like Dr. Chuck with LTI, with the LTI part of it, what they need from folks like us. If that's part of what's keeping this from moving forward, is like, what do people want? And it seems like that's part of what needs to happen. So that seems like the piece that could be very that the teaching and learning group could really help with. Where we can just say, well, here are some things. Like, for instance, Laura Geckler had put in, what would the workflow be? Would you grade things in Garuda, and would it go back into the gradebook? Would you add things here, and would it go to Garuda? Those might be the sorts of things that I think might be useful, and to get feedback from people to say, like, how would you want to do this? Where do you want to put this stuff? How do you want this workflow to go? And hopefully that would be things that will be useful for building out LTI2 and useful immediately for Garuda. So it just seems like a slam dunk to me that we can get some of that input into the process. It would be good for everybody.
Cool.
It's really exciting to hear the interest in helping us think more concretely about how to best link Sakai and Garuda via LTI. There's so much potential, and yet to do anything, we need two things. We need a specific use case or two that is generalizable to many schools, and we need some resources. And so we have some resources, but as I mentioned in the chat, when those two things are linked together, just as the teaching and learning group is discovering about lessons, then things happen.
All right. Well, I think it's probably time to wrap up. We could probably have another 20, 30 minutes discussion, but we are a little bit time limited here. So let me see if I can share my desktop and we can kind of wrap up the meeting. Thank you so much, Jacques and
Neil? Neil appears to have lost his connection. Yeah, so we thank everybody for listening to our presentation, and we hope you'll continue to have some interest in Garuda and follow our progress. And please contact us if you have thoughts about how you might use Garuda or want to know more about our project.
Yeah, we didn't put Janice our. Yeah, thanks. We didn't put our addresses, so maybe we should. That I put everything on the Etherpad.
All right, I just got booted out of the conference. I just rejoined. So sorry about that. I'm glad everyone's thanking you guys. You did a great job, and we really appreciate it. And maybe there makes sense to do additional follow-up. It sounds like there might be some interest in that. So just to wrap up, let's see. The main things are just determining what the upcoming sessions are. It sounded like there is interest in Wiki, so I will discuss, because there's one or two other people that might be able to co-lead that with me for a Wiki presentation at a future meeting, and just taking any other suggestions for themes or topics. We don't have very much time, but if anyone has anything, the LTI theme, Dr. Truck did say he is very interested in presenting to the teaching and learning group. We just haven't nailed down a date yet. So I'm still working on that. I'm wondering if there's any other thoughts that are stimulated by today's meeting. For potential future topics. Do we want to consider having a use case meeting at some point? For a potential, like explore developing a use case for Garuda?
I would personally be interested in that, sure. John.
So I'll put that down as a possibility. I'll put down Wiki discussion as a possibility. Put down LTI, which we had already discussed, but I'll get that, see if we can get that going. Go ahead, sorry.
I was going to say, and I don't know, like, I know that one of the, Wiki, one of the Wiki, one of the Wiki kind of solutions or options or approaches has been one that's LTI compliant. So, I'm just going to put this out there, but I wonder if some of the stuff might even be combined. That I don't know if there's any discussion of what might be appropriate rich LTI2 integrations for the Wiki that might involve, I don't know what, but, just how that might be, included. That, this whole idea that, whenever we're talking about LTI tools, and especially ones that are within the kind of community's, purview, that we could potentially talk about, well, what can LTI2 be done with that. So I guess my thinking with that is just to constantly be thinking of that LTI2 part of this and how we can move that down the road, because, just to, get more out of it. Now, I'm not sure if that's, I'm not sure if it's applicable to Wiki, but just putting that out there.
Right. Okay. I made a note of it. Any other ideas for future discussions, presentations, inputs? Okay, well, I guess that's it for now. Thank you all, and keep thinking about those ideas for what what you want to get out of the meeting and what you could bring and present to the teaching and learning group, because that's what we're here for, is to learn from each other, and also bring in some of these external folks who aren't always part of the teaching and learning but are connected to it in some ways, and we could have these richer discussions like we had today. So thank you, everybody. I guess I'll end the recording and we'll sign off.
Thanks.
And recording.